Are we good to go? I need sunglasses. Are we good to go? Yes. Quick question. Is there any way to dim the upstairs lights just a little bit? How are you guys finding it? Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's been a long couple of days, but we certainly are very happy to see so many faces here. It would be great if you could come closer to the front. Is that going to inconvenience you in any way? Could I ask some of you in the middle row just to come closer to the front? It just makes it easier for us in terms of facilitating comments, etc. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to this session, this plenary session, which is a very important one. And we've certainly had some interesting conversations and debates over the last couple of days. And there is so much value to add from each region. However, it's not going to be enough time to do it in an hour and a half. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Carrapichano. I'm actually a Mozambican native, but I now live in Cape Town, South Africa, previously Johannesburg. I've been in the media industry for 30 years, and for the last almost 17 years, I've been involved in the work that really drives my passion, being social behavioral change communication. I was part of the Communication for Change conference, which ran in South Africa in 2018, and from there invited to join the SBCC International Steering Committee in 2020. So it's been an amazing journey, and 2020 didn't happen, but certainly 22 has been a complete action-packed past few days, and certainly a lot of learnings for each and every one of us in this room. During the period between 2020 and 22, we as a collective steering committee decided it was really important to keep the conversations going. So each region, as represented here today, and I'll take you through my colleagues, each region ran their own workshops, webinars, consultations, etc. So the objective of today and how it's been structured is to really look at the challenges, the SBCC challenges by regions, the opportunities and the synergies. We'll have a conversation with our very astute panel, which I'll introduce you to in a minute, and then after we'll go through each regions representing the South. Before I start, I'd like to know how many people here, if you could stand up, are representing Africa. Where are our fellow Africans? Great, thank you, great representation. Latin America and the Caribbean?
Noisy one.
Ready for the after party. South Asia? Welcome. And the Middle East and North Africa. Well, I think there's pretty good representation. I think Africa may be winning here. Let's see how it is in 2024. So welcome to all of you. Let me take you through the co-facilitator of today. Adelaida, get a little spotlight here. Adelaida, as many of you may know her, is an anthropologist and producer and director trained in the United Kingdom. She co-founded Citurna and Imaginario 35 years ago and does a lot of communication for change work in Colombia and Latin America, focused on television, multimedia for children and youth, and entertainment. Welcome, Adelaida. Adelaida will be my co-facilitator, and we have a section within our program for about 20 minutes where we are going to give you a voice, because it's not just about us talking, where you can comment on what has happened in your regions that perhaps are synergistic to these regions here. Our first speaker, our very own South African, or flying the South African flag, is Dr. Sara Nieuwoudt. And Sara has been really an amazing colleague in the work we've done together in Africa. Sara coordinates social behavioral change communication program at the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, South Africa, which includes a master in public health, a degree, and multiple accredited short courses. And we know how important education is in this sector. Sara is deeply committed to the SBCC capacity strengthening partnerships with government, civil society, and other academic institutions in the region, with a goal of more locally led and owned initiatives, and I know Sara will speak to those. She brings an expertise in the fields of the SBCC capacity strengthening, gender mainstreaming, research, and social and commercial determinants of health. And as I said, Sara helped coordinate the Africa regional conversations that we had leading up to this summit. I had the most interesting conversation with Jair last night, which was translated, and he will be speaking in Spanish, so I hope you all have your headsets. I could have spoken to Jair and about the Latin American Caribbean region, because it's completely fascinating, as some of you will know that are from there. The lay of the land is just so much more different, and the challenges are so much more different, and Jair will take us through that. He's a sociologist and master in political and economic studies with more than 25 years of activism, direct work with communities and NGOs. Yeah, where is the clicker? Oh, apologies. No, but where is I'm supposed to be driving it? My apologies, give me a second.
So we need the clicker for these slides.
Okay, will you drive it from the back for me? If we could have, yes, there's Jair's slide. Jair is a professor in the Department of Social Communication. Jair, thank you. I did have a clicker, but it has disappeared. If there is a spare one, I would really appreciate it. As I said, he's a professor in the Department of Social Communication, a researcher of PBX Research Group on Communication, Culture, and Social Change, and academic coordinator of the Masters in Communication at the Universidad del Norte. If we could move on to Dorina, please. Dorina Andreev-jitaru has 20 years experience, and Dorina brings an expertise in the field of social behavioral change and social research. Dorina has worked with UNICEF, WHO, UNSD, UNPD. There's a long list that goes on here, and in countries in South Asia, West and Central Africa, Eastern Europe, and Central Asia. She's a lead expert for United Nations Statistics Division and has worked in humanitarian and development contexts in the field of immunization, maternal and child health, education, nutrition, child and social protection, gender-based violence, peace building, and civil registration. She's currently pursuing her PhD in social psychology. Tunia, please. And lastly, we have Nia. Nia Kapil serves as UNICEF's Regional Advisor for Social and Behavioral Change, Community Engagement in the Middle East and North Africa. In her capacity, she provides technical oversight and guidance to 16 UNF countries across the region and one area office covering the Gulf states to advance the regional agenda of SBC priorities, research, systems, capacities, and partnerships, as well as quality assurance. Now, if I may start with first question, which goes to Sara. And the first question is, taking into consideration your region, Sara, tell us about the major SBCC issues in Africa, the practice, the education in the region, and the webinars and organized sessions that were held by us in different African regions, the learnings we achieved from those in the lead up to the summit, and what conversations and debates happened, what opportunities, what challenges, and yeah, the learnings that we could share with other regions. Thank you, Sara.
Thanks. Excuse me. Thanks so much, Anna. And for those wondering why I am here, just to say, Prof. Adebayo Fayoyin was the person meant to be here. And as many of us experience on the continent, he had issues with access with visas. So just to put that front and forward. In the Africa region, we had a number of consultations leading up to this summit. We had 4 events, one based in Nigeria, looking at risk communication, community engagement in the context of disinformation and misinformation. We had another in-person meeting in Malawi, looking at the sharing of knowledge and health communication in particular. We had another in South Africa, again, looking at the issues of social listening, what we can learn from our own experiences and those in the region. And then finally, a regional webinar where we focused on how social and behavior change interacted with climate awareness, mitigation, and also climate action, as well as this topic of capacity strengthening in our region. So with those different consultations, as well as what we've been talking about here at the summit, I think some of the critical things that have come out of those conversations are, one, this interwoven discourse on who is representing and how we are represented, and this feeling often that there's a filtering down of funding for us to do work that might feel authentic and natural to us. There are great things happening at the ground level in different languages and different contexts that are not necessarily being communicated with each other, let alone being published or being shared more broadly. We also have identified a number of issues, particular, or opportunities, I should say, particular to some of these different contexts we talked about. So in the context of social listening, we've picked up the importance of trust relationships. And in many of our countries, trust has been broken between governments and citizens. And so we have really difficult conversations to be had about how to open up conversations and engage with others at grassroots where there are trust relationships. And opportunities to think, for instance, beyond social listening for COVID or vaccination hesitancy to other issues, learning from the techniques we've been gaining from and learning from and finding ways to cross-fertilize. Again, linked to this conversation is how we can generate, in terms of capacity strengthening, not just capacity being taught by models or frameworks that come from the outside or what is perceived to be outside, but the decolonization of how knowledge is generated, recognized, and valued within our own institutions. So in Southern Africa, we have started to develop degree programs on social behavior change, and other parts of the continent are still struggling, are grappling with those kind of issues. Demand far outstrips what we have right now. So part of our conversations are, how do we interlink different networks, different communities, different lessons in a more strategic way to amplify our voices in these contexts. In terms of climate change, because I do want to pass to my others, just maybe one other point. A lot was already raised in the context of the Tuesday plenary, but just to also raise in our conversations to emphasize the point that climate change is something cross-cutting, and that as a community, we need to be much more strategic about talking to the people in those different areas, the different agencies and systems, so that what we can bring to the table in social and behavior change in terms of the processes and the values that we hold dear become part of how we respond to the climate challenges we face. I'll pause there, but hopefully we'll have an opportunity to weave back some of the other really rich conversations we've been having. Thanks.
Yes, and I think can you hear me? On climate change, I mean, certainly from our learnings is that there are some areas that have had remarkable impact. So it's really taking some regions within Africa and really sharing within Africa first, perhaps, and then to other regions. I don't know if many of you were at our Africa Greet and Meet yesterday, but that session was set up so that we can really connect as a continent, because we've got 50 plus countries, and we certainly want to collaborate and share between ourselves so that we can empower Africa and what we're doing in Africa for cross-sharing to other regions. Over to you, Dorina.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I'm audible. I am. Okay. Thank you. Happy to be here. Not seeing really the faces from the scene, but I hope you had a great time during these days. First of all, I would like to say that I'm here to represent South Asia because I was delegated to. I'm not from South Asia, but I work currently in South Asia. Then South Asia is a huge region. It's 25% of the world's total population residing in that region, with diverse type of issues, problems, challenges, and also opportunities. So, and it goes from Afghanistan to India, from small countries like Maldives to Bangladesh and Pakistan, a huge diversity of different issues and challenges. So we had organized last year the conversations, and of course, one of the main subjects which were discussed was about what can we learn from COVID? And I think that's a question most of us have, right? So we did so much everywhere. Everyone was doing a million things. How do we bring all those things together? How do we use them to strengthen the system? And when something bad happens next time, we don't run around again doing the same things over and over, spending a lot of money. So that was, and that's one of the concerns the sector in South Asia has, and I suppose that many of you here in the room. How do we ensure inclusion? We've seen, for example, that sometimes women were left behind in some countries, or different age categories or different castes. How do we work towards that in a sustainable manner? Also, how do we put community at the center, right? Not going in a community and doing some sessions with them and imposing some ideas on people, but how do we ensure that the community, building on its natural strength and natural structures, once finds the power and the enthusiasm and the energy to build a better life for themselves and for their children? These are like super philosophical questions, and I'm sure the answers, all of us, we want to know the answers, but I think this is a legitimate question we should ask ourselves. In terms of topics, of course, as an interest, we have the climate change. Nutrition is a big issue. A lot of emergencies. You've heard, every one of you heard about Pakistan, the floods, Afghanistan, the insecurity. You have Bangladesh, we have Maldives and Sri Lanka, which are under climate threat quite heavily. Gender transformation. These were the reflections we've had, quite a number of ideas which came from those reflections. And the conclusion would be overall, how do we go beyond? Because boiling in the same water all the time and wanting to have something different is not possible. So how do we go beyond? And I think that plenary, which was today before lunch, it was a great example of how we can go beyond. I think I can stop here, right?
Well, thank you. What I would like to ask you, which was an important part of our discussion yesterday, and I completely agree with you, was research and data and how we can collaborate a lot better. And it is a thread that came through all four, from all four of you and many others at the summit. Do you want to touch on that briefly?
Yes, I can, of course, because I left it for a later question, but I can touch upon it now. I think it's very important that we don't do things chaotically. We really need to focus on behavioral and social data and use the science to inform our decisions and to inform our interventions. First, for policy making, and we need also to talk and to advocate strongly with the governments. How can we support them in using behavioral and social data for policy making, but also how do we build sustainable data systems that can inform and also show the progress over time?
Thank you, Dorina. I think the point on COVID, and that's, I'm sure, also going to come from the audience and the learnings we had there. And one of our colleagues, Kent from Nigeria, who can't be here with us today, made a very relevant point, which is how do we keep the behavior that we have taught people as simply as washing hands to continue post the pandemic? And we have really noticed that's a problem, and is that frequency and consistency in messaging. Now over to Jair, who will be speaking in Spanish. So if you have your headsets, please put them on. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Ana, por esta oportunidad. Lo primero que quiero anotar es que mi voz hoy acá obedece a un proceso en el cual hemos recogido muchas voces, es decir, no es estrictamente mi punto de vista, sino como una suerte de recorrido por discusiones que se vienen dando en diferentes ámbitos de América Latina, alrededor tanto de los temas que llamamos temas de desarrollo como de los procesos de comunicación en la región. Entonces, no es una discusión que se haya preparado para traer al Summit, sino que son discusiones que se vienen dando en diferentes ámbitos en la región y que aprovechamos este espacio para poder ponerlas en común. Segundo, América Latina y el Caribe es un territorio muy diverso. No podemos hablar de un territorio homogéneo porque hay diferencias muy marcadas entre países, diferencias por ingresos económicos, diferencias culturales, etcétera. Y también hay diferencias muy marcadas al interior de los países. O sea, los países no son homogéneos, aunque los indicadores puedan mostrar en muchos casos bienestar o realmente hay diferencias estructurales muy grandes. Dentro de esta diversidad al interior de los países encontramos temas que aún siguen como acceso a alimentos, a servicios de salud de calidad, acceso a la tierra, por ejemplo, que ha generado conflictos históricos en países como Colombia, acceso a educación de calidad. Hay temas como educación y salud que han logrado ampliar coberturas, pero la calidad diferencial entre regiones, por ejemplo, urbanas y rurales, genera diferencias estructurales muy fuertes. Muchos temas de inequidad, exclusión social tanto en la cultura, en distintos contextos, aspectos como racismo, xenofobia, en fin, aspectos relacionados con productividad económica, ingresos, y muchos temas que son también y que han venido siendo trabajados por agencias de cooperación internacional relacionados con derechos sexuales y reproductivos, salud materna, género, o sea que están interpelando mucho toda esta perspectiva de la necesidad de trabajar con enfoques transeccionales. Desde esta perspectiva, por ejemplo, una lección que nos dejó la COVID en la región es cómo pesan las diferencias estructurales. O sea, cómo el tema de salud no es un tema solamente de un virus, sino que el virus afecta dependiendo de muchos aspectos estructurales que hay en la población y una pandemia como esta devela esa realidad en la región. Hay temas regionales que son muy neurálgicos, que están como en otro nivel, que tienen que ver con el tema de la democracia, los derechos humanos, la justicia, la corrupción en distintos países. No voy a nombrar países, pero digamos son temas que se siguen agenciando. Temas como la necesidad de construcción de paz y de convivencia. Yo creo que aquí es muy importante, por ejemplo, todos los debates sobre pasar de acciones punitivas, de violencia contra la violencia, hacia temas más de justicia transicional, y tenemos casos, por ejemplo, del tratamiento que se le da a los conflictos tanto armados por el gobierno de los países como conflictos como, por ejemplo, las pandillas juveniles. Tenemos temas como las migraciones, por ejemplo, que es un tema, pesa mucho todo el tema de la migración, por ejemplo, en este caso de Venezuela, en todo el continente, las migraciones de Centroamérica hacia los Estados Unidos. O sea, hay un tema muy complejo, muy importante. El tema del narcotráfico también, que cruza mucho desde la región andina por todo Centroamérica hacia el norte, que genera y que además se combina con estos otros temas. Y también enunciaría todo este tema de deterioro ambiental, donde está el deterioro de la Amazonía, el deterioro y todo lo que el cambio climático está generado. Ahorita mismo, por ejemplo, hay inundaciones, hay una cantidad de problemas que afectan muchos otros temas. Pero también quisiera enunciar una parte que a veces no se enuncia, y es todo lo que hay en la región en materia de comunicación. O sea, hay una riqueza en la región que tiene que ver, por ejemplo, con pensamiento comunicacional. Casi siempre se nos viene a la mente Paulo Freire porque ha tenido mucha visibilidad, pero nosotros tenemos muchas tradiciones de pensamiento comunicacional, desde la práctica como Rosa María Alfaro, desde las discusiones que van, digamos, sobre el sentido de la construcción de las identidades regionales. Está Jesús Martín Barbero. Venimos un poco más hacia adelante sobre todo lo que está pasando con juventudes, política y cultura como Rosana Reguillo, Clemencia Rodríguez, que ha estado trabajando, que ha estado con nosotros acá, sobre todo el tema de comunicación ciudadana, los ciudadanos y cómo todo eso, digamos, cruza. Segundo, comunicación popular, comunitaria y ciudadana. Hay muchos procesos de comunicación popular que cruzan medios comunitarios, que cruzan arte, que cruzan cultura, que cruzan diferentes, y hay una riqueza y diversidad en los distintos países. Hay también sociedad civil que se organiza en casos como el que vimos de Eliana Cominga, Fundación Imaginario, Calandria, en todos los países alrededor de temas, observatorios de chequeo de información. En fin, hay muchas organizaciones, hay periodismo ciudadano, hay muchas intervenciones estatales e intervenciones de organizaciones internacionales que tienen también trayectorias que han mezclado enfoques, ¿verdad? Aunque son ámbitos donde se sigue discutiendo mucho todo el tema de si es una comunicación vertical, más instrumental, o si también cómo incorporamos otros elementos que logren más apropiación y procesos más sostenibles. Y creo que finalmente para finalizar quisiera referirme a dos cosas que son muy importantes, que son los movimientos sociales que existen en América Latina. Hay unos fuertes movimientos sociales que han evitado reformas nocivas, que han derrocado gobiernos. Existen movimientos sociales muy fuertes que es muy importante tener en cuenta, por ejemplo, o que han llevado también recientemente y que han contribuido a que lleguen gobiernos al poder, como es el caso de Chile, Colombia, en fin. Y finalmente quiero cerrar con algo que yo creo que es lo más importante también para reivindicar, y es lo que llamamos comunicación propia, que tiene que ver con esa comunicación que emerge de todo digamos, de todos los pueblos indígenas, de los pueblos afro, donde hay, digamos, no es otra teleología del desarrollo, sino otra perspectiva en relación con la vida. Entonces, estas formas, estos tipos de comunicación son unas comunicaciones muy distintas. Por ejemplo, cuando nosotros hablamos del buen vivir, que tiene que ver con los pueblos indígenas, allí la comunicación no es solamente entre ser humano y ser humano, sino que tiene que ver con la relación entre el hombre y la naturaleza, que se miran sin separarlo. Entonces la comunicación es no solamente ser humano, hombre, naturaleza, o la comunicación, por ejemplo, de la perspectiva del vivir sabroso, que se conecta más con las tradiciones afro, por ejemplo, y que tiene otras coordenadas del goce, de la vivencia, de la reivindicación y celebración de la vida, cosa que a veces no pasa con narrativas como las de los derechos humanos, como con narrativas como las que nosotros utilizamos que no se conectan con esto. Entonces, digamos que hay un reto cuando nosotros hablamos de la necesidad de una mirada decolonial, es centrarnos en eso, reconocer que América Latina es todo eso y que desde ahí podemos hablar con lo que venga de fuera, no rechazándolo per se, sino entendiendo que somos una mezcla bastante compleja, como la señala Omar Rincón, que hay de todo, hay una mezcla, pero que desde ahí podemos dialogar con todo lo que venga desde afuera sin permitir que haya esencialmente una imposición foránea.
Thank you, Jair. Thank you. I must say that, as I mentioned earlier, I could have spent another 5 hours chatting to Jair and Adelaida because such a fascinating region. What I did love to hear is that your literacy levels are high, and that is not something we face in other regions, which make communication a little bit more problematic. Before we go to Nieuwoudt, and one of the challenges you raised, Nieuwoudt, was violence against children and women. And since I'm a media girl and the medium is the message, I'm here supporting 16 days of activism with my orange scarf. Over to you, Nieuwoudt.
Thanks, Anna, and thanks for having me here. Just at the outset, I wanted to say that I'm stepping in for our colleague Jumana Kalot from the American University of Beirut, who couldn't make it here for logistical reasons. Jumana and I have been working closely in preparation for this session, and while we are here and I'm here on stage, we do represent the views of a number of different organizations, agencies, and professionals that work across the region, and I hope we do justice to all of your opinions and perspectives. Morocco and the summits happening in Morocco is actually an honor for all of us. You know, it's unique. I mean, Morocco, although geographically placed in Africa, is very closely connected to the Middle East and is a part of the Arab League. So for all of us who work in the Middle East and the North Africa region, it's really great to have had the summit. It's very timely and has really given us a great opportunity to showcase our work, to learn from others, and to just improve our collaboration with all of the other different organizations and regions here. Let me just start by giving a little bit of a picture of the MENA region. This is a region with a high variance in country contexts, starting from Morocco in the west and going right up to the east, the Gulf states, and you have Iran and Iraq. Typically, that's what it covers. Some organizations look a little bit further east. Huge variation in socioeconomic and political contexts, from high-income countries to middle-income economies, as well as a huge number of countries in humanitarian crisis or currently are fragile states. It is a region that's marred with internal conflicts, failing economies as well as migration. What this means for us is that the work that we do in social and behavior change takes many different forms, and creating that role and that niche for us is complex as a discipline and a set of programmers and academics working in the field within the region. Linked to this, the governance systems across this region are also very varied. We do have monarchies in many countries. Even so, there is across the region an unfinished business around democratization and human rights. Again, this has meant in many countries a sort of constraint around citizen voice and spaces for people to speak out. And in particular, it's about freedom of expression for the press and journalists who have many, many more limitations around them. Like many of the other regions, actually, we do have a climate crisis, and it takes a unique characteristic. This is an arid region with increasing desertification. So rising temperatures and water scarcity are big stressors for communities and households living across many of the countries. And some of the countries actually across the region, both in North Africa and the Middle East, are expected to run out of water in the next decade or two. So a huge crisis for us looming here, and which has an impact on the kind of resources that are available to households, and obviously then results in various forms of coping mechanisms, impacts decision-making at the household and community level. This region, like the others, has had a post-COVID fallout. There's increasing poverty and hunger. GDP rates have fallen down. This year's estimates for people in need of humanitarian assistance is about 100 million out of the 530 million approximately across the region, which is 20% of the population. So it's huge. The numbers are huge. Couple of other things. I mean, entrenched gender norms in this region, and you see gender discrimination played out at all levels, from the household to the political levels. Female participation in the labor force is quite among the lowest. And we have, like many other regions, a growing youth population facing a huge challenge of unemployment. So I think just to give you a sense that, these are the kind of broader context within which the SBC work is taking place. In the MENA region, we're still at the stage of organizing ourselves better as partners. In the last 1 year, we've had a series of web-based seminars on topics like climate change, on adolescents and youth, as well as health. We do have a number of disease outbreaks and have been impacted by COVID, like all other countries. So I think through this sort of organization, a little bit of consultation, not as organized or structured as some of the other regions, we do have a set of ideas on, what we can build on, and what are the issues around social behavior change communication. Typically in the region, like in others, they fall within this sort of triangle of capacity, resources, and data. We see that SBC is not a priority or understood very well in the region, particularly amongst the governments. There's limited integration of this work in development or humanitarian work, both. There are no educational programs in the region on SBCC. There's weak civil society to build long-lasting, consistent community engagement. And there are a lot of constraints around data collection as well, which limit how much of data that we can actually collect, what we can share, and how much we can use to inform our programs. I'm going to stop here, Anna. Back to you.
Thank you, Nia, and good time because I was about to prompt you there. Thank you so much. So the next 15 minutes we've set aside to open up to the floor. It's got to be somewhat controlled because there may be many voices. We don't want to encourage questions, but more observations, challenges that you may be facing from your regions. So Adelaida here is going to help me. I think there's some mics on the floor as well. And yeah, please raise your hands and add your comments from your regions, learnings, building on what our panel have said.
Thank you. Thank you. Just one comment for those that speak Spanish or another language, and Jair, beginning with you, slower, so we can translate. You were going too fast. Thank you. We have colleagues that have already volunteered to share from regions that were not represented or had not did not develop consultations in the regions. So colleagues from Malaysia, Jensen, Emma, could you give us a mic for? So we've asked them to be, as brief as possible, maximum 3 minutes. So they're going to share some thoughts from Malaysia, Vietnam.
Thank you. Hello. Hello, my name is Emma, and this is my colleague, Jensen, and we are from Malaysia. So for those who are not familiar with our country, we are a middle-income country situated somewhere in Southeast Asia. And middle income countries are like middle child in a family. And like any middle child, we are often overlooked and always crave for attention. So we'd like to begin by saying thank you to the organizers for giving us some time and attention through this space to share a little bit about our country through this current SBCC movement.
Southeast Asia countries have significant historical, political, and cultural legacies. However, at this summit, the region appears to be underrepresented as SBC and SBCC sites. So in response to questions we should ponder. First, how do we, the Southeast Asia countries, coexist, co-create, and complement one another for the benefit of our generations and people? Second, how can the SBCC framework complement the society's existing structures? Now, taking Malaysia as an example, we are different because we have high internet penetration, especially among the young generation, and we have even have rural transformation centers, if that matters. With multicultural and diversified communities, i.e. plural society, hence we have incredible, vibrant values, religions, socio-cultural factors, and languages that are deeply embedded in and practiced by the society. And because of this diversities and richness, there are cultural norms and taboos that inform us what people generally believe to be appropriate and inappropriate behavior. So most of our SBCC activities are community-led SBCC initiatives of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Thank you, Jensen. So we have many online community-led SBCC movement across different issues ranging from sexual harassment, cyberbullying, and taboo issues linked to religion and culture, as Jensen has mentioned earlier. And very recently, we have seen a big social media movement that has successfully encouraged our young people to vote because they feel that they have the right and power to determine who they feel fit to rule the country. But what we'd like to highlight today is the hashtag Kita Jaga Kita social media movement that sprung out during the COVID-19 pandemic. Hashtag Kita Jaga Kita, which literally means we take care of us, is a grassroots community-led SBC as a response to those in need during the COVID-19 pandemic. It is a display of society awareness and ability to be proactive and have a problem-solving attitude in dealing with issues faced by the community. The movement started during the first national lockdown, where there were many affected by loss of income and had no channel to reach out for help. People sew PPEs, print 3D masks, conduct free lessons for kids, provide mental health support, and donated money and food to those in need. The hashtag became a way for the people to organize themselves and help solve these issues. The spirit of altruism echoed throughout the country. The hashtag became a symbol of community strength, social capital, and trust in society's ability and the power to change. This was observed post-COVID-19, where the same hashtag movements resurfaced in 2021 flood crisis, a sign that a community-led SBC is more sustainable. During the flood crisis, the private sector also responded to the call for action. For example, a global sport retailer, Decathlon, temporarily suspended their sales of kayak, paddleboarding, and life jackets to assist authorities and flood victims. There are two key lessons that we can learn from the hashtag Kita Jaga Kita, particularly for the improvement of SBCC in Malaysia and other countries. Firstly, community-led SBC is more sustainable because the change came from within and the community feels invested and accountable to help each other and solve problems themselves. Secondly, there is a huge potential to engage with organic online communities in a meaningful way for social and behavioral change that is more sustainable. However, we need to put priority in investing on learning organic online structures and its dynamics in order for us to leverage this community-led SBC.
I have to ask you.
So we have to say thank you. We need to say thank you. And I hope you can just drop by and say hello to us and learn more from this Southeast Asia country. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you know, it's always so difficult. We were just discussing with Anna yesterday. Do we put a timer like Warren and Balkis did on the town hall? It always helps, but it's also a space to share. And what this shows is that there's a lot of need to share from other regions and specificities, and there's a lot of common language. I have another colleague who's lining up.
Hola,
from
¿qué
Latin
tal?
America. Remember that you have to speak
Len-
despacio.
Despacito,
Thank you.
despacio.
And 3 minutes,
Okay.
3 minutes maximum and out.
Sí,
Okay.
solamente quería complementar algo.
Where are you from? ¿Cómo te
Ah,
llamas?
me llamo Karina.
Despacio, Karina.
Ya. Me llamo Karina Núñez, soy peruana y trabajo en Panamá en UNICEF. Lo que quería compartir era, sumando a lo que dijo Jair sobre los desafíos que tenemos en la región y desde SBC, es cómo nosotros tenemos que empezar a pensar y reflexionar sobre la necesidad de encontrar maneras de trabajar con comunidades afrodescendientes, con comunidades indígenas, sin ir e imponer conceptos, ideas foráneas. Por ejemplo, un ejemplo pequeño. Tenemos comunidades en Panamá indígenas que no tienen el concepto de adolescencia. Para ellos existe de la niñez, pasan a la adultez. Entonces nosotros tenemos ese desafío desde SBC, los SBC Specialists, de poder trabajar con esas comunidades, tender a esa reflexión, ese diálogo de manera horizontal, no ir e imponer el concepto de adolescencia, ¿no? Entonces, eso era lo único que quería compartir porque siento que Jair hizo un overview muy profundo y completo sobre lo que tenemos que enfrentar en la región. Gracias.
Gracias, Karina. Thank you, Karina, for sharing this cultural language translation. So is there anybody that's raising their hands over there? I need the mic runners to help me spot.
Here,
We have
Adelaida. We have
Katinka.
here.
I can see Katinka.
Maybe we
and
give
then-
the chance to other.
And if you have the mic, can you just
Hi.
raise your hand?
This side,
Adela,
other side,
here,
this side.
in the middle, at the left.
I've got mic here.
Where's the mic? Oh, there you are, Sue. Sorry.
I'm hiding.
Sorry, we haven't learned. These lights are terrible.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just a quick question.
Where are you from, Sue? Tell us where are you from?
Hi, I'm from South Africa.
No questions.
I wanted to know why there isn't a North American region here. And surely, especially that our biggest challenge in the planet is climate. And the most important behaviors that need to be changed are in the North. And why aren't they having a region of SBCC?
Over there. Thank you. What's your name and where you're from? And if you,
Hello, everyone. My name is Zineb. I'm a student from Morocco. I want to just say thank you for CBCC to give us this such a big opportunity. So my question is that CBCC, it can help children that have autism, because as we know, CBCC help a lot of children, a lot of people that have different struggles in their life and in their country. So yeah, thank you so much.
thank you. Yes, disabilities, autism. Over there, I see 2 hands. Is the mic on your hand? Yes,
Yes.
it's over there.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aisha. I come from Senegal and I've worked and studied in multiple places, including the UK, India, China, France, and many other places. I currently represent independently DKT International for questions on e-health and sexual and reproductive health services. And I also work for the IOC, International Olympics Committee. In Senegal, we've created an organization for informal women workers and for their socio-economic empowerment, but also for children who are autistic or who have certain handicaps. And we work with them through pottery and ceramics. But my question joins a little bit the one of the lady who just asked hers before, is about governance and the fact that governments in Africa, as mentioned by some of the panelists, might be failing. So what would be the solution? Considering that in most of those countries, the governing systems that are set in place are not governing systems that are adapted to the culture, or that are governing systems adapted to the social behavior or the social values or the beliefs. They are most of the times governing systems that were inherited to colonization. So what would be your solution to affect positive change into those governments failing? Thank you.
Thank you from Senegal. We have a colleague from Mexico already with the...
Hola. ¿Qué tal? Mucho gusto. Mi nombre es Ana Cecilia Campos. Yo soy de México y estoy muy contenta de estar aquí. Represento a Magenta o Magenta y mi comentario está dirigido hacia esta idea cómo desde América Latina llevamos tantos años trabajando en esta comunicación, como bien lo dijo Jair. Sin embargo, hoy en día el término de cambio social y de comportamiento no es un término que se entienda en América Latina de la misma forma que entendemos la comunicación social, la comunicación comunitaria, el trabajo con las comunidades indígenas. Entonces, mi preocupación, aportación, pregunta para toda la región de América Latina es cómo nos aseguramos de generar este sentimiento de apropiación del cambio social y de comportamiento, o de lo que aquí nos referimos como SBC, y lo sentimos como algo local que genera un cambio a nivel comunitario. Y en realidad esto es algo que es un deseo también, ¿no? Quiero que SBC se vuelva parte del trabajo social que hacemos en la región y que integre a todas las personas, tanto indígenas como locales, como blancas, como de todos los colores, ¿no? Que se vuelva un movimiento social en sí mismo. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. There was Katinka, you have a mic already? We need a mic here. Where's our mic runners? Tenemos aquí. Sorry. We need another. There's like 3 hands and then Katinka gets to inherit that. But we need another mic here.
Merci. Je vais parler en français.
S'il vous plaît, lentement pour la traduction, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, je m'excuse pour ceux qui ont parlé en espagnol, parce que je n'ai pas pris d'écouteurs, j'ai été imprudent, donc je pensais que ça allait être en anglais, en français ou autre. Voilà, donc en suivant les panélistes, dont j'ai compris ce qu'a présenté, ce qu'a partagé les 3 panélistes, le 4e c'était en espagnol. Et quand je les écoute attentivement, il est très clair qu'il y a une grosse similitude entre les pays ou les régions, similitude en termes de diversité, en termes de complexité, en termes aussi de défis. La bonne nouvelle, c'est qu'en matière de SBC, on est en train de s'engager fortement vers la génération d'évidence qui permettent vraiment de prendre en compte les réalités socio-culturelles, anthropologiques au niveau local. Et c'est là, moi, mon souci et aussi l'encouragement que je nous ferai, c'est que nous nous engageons vraiment vers les données locales. Quand on parle de diversité, on parle aussi de spécificité. On parle également de détails qui échappent quand on regarde avec les œillères. La culture est tellement profonde et diverse que nous ratons beaucoup de choses si nous voulons globaliser et nous voulons généraliser. Donc, pour moi, il est important que les collectes de données, la génération d'évidence que nous allons accompagner puissent vraiment permettre de donner la parole aux communautés, parce que depuis longtemps, on ne parle qu'à leur place. Maintenant, essayons de leur donner la parole, essayons de les entendre sans mettre d'écouteurs, essayons de comprendre ce qu'ils nous disent pour pouvoir travailler avec eux vers les changements que nous souhaitons. L'exemple banal que je vais donner, au cours d'une supervision de campagne de vaccination polio, nous avons vu une maman prendre son enfant au marché et courir à toute vitesse pour aller à la maison, parce qu'elle avait peur qu'on vaccine son enfant. Cette maman, son souci, c'est le bien-être, c'est la santé de son enfant. Le vaccinateur qui est venu pour vacciner, son souci, c'est le bien-être, c'est la santé de l'enfant. Pour le même intérêt, il y a une vision différente. Comment nous sommes en mesure d'entendre, d'écouter, de faire avec les communautés, avec les choses locales qui peuvent marcher. Merci.
Thank you. There's all these... On a une autre madame Et merci pour dire.
Merci. Je suis Dr Jair, je suis marocaine. Alors moi, ma question, c'est de savoir, avec le changement de comportement sur lequel nous sommes en train de travailler, est-ce qu'il n'est pas possible d'essayer d'abolir le racisme? Parce que j'ai vu dans certains pays, malgré que ces pays ne sont plus colonisés, malgré tout ce que ils ont pu, enfin, que les autorités soient des autorités enfin, du pays, il y a toujours un certain racisme. Et j'ai visité un pays que je ne veux pas citer, où il y avait l'apartheid, où on sent qu'actuellement les Blancs vivent d'un côté et les Noirs de l'autre. Et j'ai été vraiment surprise. J'étais à Cape Town et j'étais avec une amie de l'Inde qui a la même couleur que moi et nous avons demandé au chauffeur de taxi de nous emmener dans notre hôtel qui était 5 étoiles et il nous a dit, est-ce que vous y travaillez? Et vraiment, j'ai été choquée. C'est ce que je voulais vous communiquer. Donc, il faut vraiment, on sent que le racisme augmente et il faut vraiment travailler dans ce sens. Et je vous remercie.
Merci. We're going to take the mic this side, and then we have another gentleman, Harriet, Katinka, ages ago, and the lady here. But may I ask you to be more succinct so we can have, more voices? And I'm not sure whether on the second floor there's another microphone over there. Do you have the microphone over there?
Hola.
Okay, so we're going to go here. We'll go to this lady, and then in the back, please.
Okay.
And then we'll go back. Okay, Katinka. Je vous en prie, madame.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yes. Right. So I'm from the Eastern Caribbean. I think the only Caribbean person here. And no, I'm speaking English. My question.
Where are you from?
From Barbados. Yes.
you.
So I noticed that this is my first SBC conference, that a lot of what we're talking about really applies to like lower middle income countries. And I think one of the challenges that we have to address maybe as UNICEF is how do we do SBC a little different in high income countries, where sometimes it's hard to start social movements, difficult to work at community level because the community structures that you talk about don't necessarily manifest themselves in the same way. Working with indigenous groups and so on, we don't necessarily have that. And then the other point that I wanted to make in terms of looking at opportunities, I've noticed in the last couple of years, there've been social movements in high income countries like the US, for example, the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter and so on. What can we learn from those movements how, in terms of as an opportunity that perhaps can be translated or perhaps could be used in other settings? And then last but not least, in terms of moving forward, how do we sustain social movements for behavior change? Thank you.
A lot of common issues that are being discussed since the morning. Can I ask the lady, can you pass the microphone, mic runner here? And then do we have a microphone already there? Do we need a microphone in the back?
No, it's
You do
here,
have it? Can you
on your left.
Can you get up? Just give me 1 second and we'll give the lady the voice and then you, okay? Thank you.
Bonjour, je suis Hanna, je suis de Marrakech. Tout d'abord, je vous souhaite la bienvenue à tous les congressistes au Maroc et spécialement à Marrakech. Je suis membre d'une association de scolarisation de la jeune fille rurale. Nous scolarisons 223 filles à l'année. Et j'aimerais bien relever un point qui est très important. Alors, le point, je parle du stress hydrique, du changement climatique et de la pandémie qui ont provoqué beaucoup de problèmes, énormément de problèmes, surtout dans le milieu rural. Qu'a prévu comme solution le SBCC pour essayer de trouver des solutions pour l'autonomisation de la jeune fille rurale et surtout de la femme rurale? Merci.
Sí. Merci de Maroc.
Aló.
Il y a quelqu'un là-bas. Sí, ¿tú ya tienes el micrófono?
Sí, ya tengo el
There you
micrófono.
are.
Gracias.
Despacio para la traducción, ¿no?
Perfecto.
Hace una media hora atrás almorzamos con el equipo de Latinoamérica.
Más despacio.
Sí, tuvimos una reunión con el equipo de Latinoamérica y uno de los acuerdos a los que llegamos era empezar a consolidar una comunidad entre instituciones, organizaciones, personas que trabajan en SBC para intercambiar experiencias y tener una relación mucho más cercana. Pensando un poco en grande, ¿cómo podríamos, y esta es una pregunta a los panelistas, por supuesto, pero es una pregunta para todos, tener este tipo de comunidades, empezar a conocer lo que hacen en países de África, de Latinoamérica, del sur de Asia, y empezar también a integrarnos y crear alguna plataforma, por ejemplo, donde tengamos la posibilidad de subir nuestras experiencias, intercambiar, conversar, sin necesidad de esperar al próximo summit para encontrarnos.
Sorry, we have two more, so I have to be selective. I'm sorry,
Hello?
sir. Do we have a mic here?
Yes, here.
There you are.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike will come to you. We need a mic in this area, and then Harriet, colleague from this 3, 4 here, and then we're gonna have 4. Tell us who you are, where you come from.
My name is Rassan. I'm from Iraq, social behavior change. With the different notes that we heard from the panels, and understanding that there are diversities and different perceptions toward social change in each region and within in countries within each of those regions, and relating it to the perception or concept of imposing a certain behavior change. How can we put like our indicators, our outcomes together? For example, each community or country or government can have different understanding of an outcome for behavior. And with all these dynamics that we have, especially in regions with a lot of conflicts, how can we make sure that we are on the right track? I'm not talking about like COVID, for example. For COVID, all the like most of the outcomes of the behaviors are very clear for us, but for other norm change, social change that we are aspiring, governments, communities can have different views, and they can impose it. Like a government can impose it on their communities before other social behavior change practitioners do it. So this is a challenging, and I would like to hear from the panelists to how do they approach such an issue. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always so difficult to not let people talk, but we're going to give here, and then you, then Age is waiting. You got Harriet, number 3, you got 4 here. We got a gentleman with a light who's really interesting. He's waving to me with a light, and there. And you got a mic there, so we'll start with this gentleman here, and then we'll go to that mic. Sorry, here.
Yeah.
If
Can I speak in Arabic?
If I may, can you hear me? So I'm going to make a slight change to the program here so that we can allow for more voices if you'd like that. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I will, in question 3, ask you to take some of what has come through from these conversations, and I'll give you more time on question 3. Does that work? Yeah? Okay, thank you.
And the question on translation from Arabic, yes, we have it, right? Yes, we do. Please, sir.
طيب يعني أنا من فلسطين.
Slowly.
أوكي. محمد أبو سليمان من المينا ريجنال أوفيس، بشتغل مع نيها، وأنا من فلسطين بالأساس، بس كتير بخطر في بالي قديش صار في تغيير في مفهومنا وفهمنا لمجموعة من الكونسبت، خاصة يعني كلمة الحب في منطقة المينا، وكيف المجتمع صار بيشوف كلمة الحب، كيف بعرفها وكيف إلها أبعاد اجتماعية. بعتقد إنه صار المفهوم فيه شوية تشويه. كمان مفهوم السلام، لأنه كتير مرات كان بيحاول إن حط علينا اتفاقيات سلام غير عادلة، فحتى مفهوم السلام صار فيه تشويه، وهي كلمة كتير مهمة للإنسان لما بيعيش. وكمان فكرة التعاطف، بتحس إنه مفهوم التعاطف والكونسبت تبع التعاطف مفقود في المنطقة، وأعتقد إنه كمان هذا بيؤدي لأبعاد اجتماعية كتير خطيرة. لما بنيجي بنحكي كمان اللي كانت بتحكي فيه نهى على الفايلنس والجندر، بنطلع إنه المينا ريجن تقريبا من 15-20 سنة صار في فصل ما بين الأطفال الذكور والإناث في المدارس، وبعد 20 سنة صرنا بنشوف العنف ضد المرأة والديسكريمينيشن ضد المرأة عمال بيطلع وبيزيد. وكمان بحب أطرح فكرة المهور اللي لما الرجل بيجي يتزوج بيدفعها، وهذا له تكلفة اقتصادية لا شك، بس له أبعاد اجتماعية كتير خطيرة إلها علاقة بالذكورية وبالسيطرة بالأسرة وبالدور تبع الرجل والمرأة. وأعتقد إنه هاي كمان مفاهيم، حتى لما بنرجع للدين بنلاقي إنه المهر مش 6,000 و10,000 دولار زي ما هلأ بصير في المنطقة العربية. الموضوع رمزي كتير، بس كمان هذا مفهوم بنفع نتطرق له لأنه له أبعاد إلها علاقة بالتغيير الاجتماعي على المدى البعيد. شكرا.
Thank you. Thank you. Gentleman here at the front that has been waiting, and then Harriet in the back, and then we have a microphone already over there. Yeah, over there. So,
Thank you.
Thanks for waiting. Sorry.
It's Mike Mpoi. I'm a medical doctor. I work for IPAS in DRC. My question would be about, in general, we talk about social behavior change, communication, and I know that it is a really important field in the work that we're doing, mostly in sexual and reproductive health. We were performing a program in DRC on SRH and particularly on access to safe abortion in the community. And we can see how it is important to have a strong SBCC program implemented because we face a lot of opposition from the community, from political level. I was kind of astonished. Yesterday, I was talking with someone who was asked, how do you deal with abortion question in your country? And the person was saying that abortion is not a problem for the Minister of Health. That is the Minister of Justice. And I was like, okay, so the fact to be women, you know, directly you're oriented to be someone handled by the Minister of Justice or by the court. For me, that is not making sense. And for most of people in this room, I think the message is kind of different. We have a lot to do to make sure that the world in which we're living is fair for everyone and that women can have access to full range women rights in their life. And the question is, how can we make sure that the social behavior change work we're doing can get to influence political leadership and commitment to change policies and laws that are inclusive and allow women to have normal and you know, affordable or you know, normal life as men has in our different societies and communities. So that is my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We have a gentleman in the back over there with a mic who's already ready. And then Harriet in here. So, Anna has given us permission for 2 more questions. So Harriet, please, and then the gentleman over there and then back here. Okay. Yes, go ahead, Harriet. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Harriet Perlman. I'm from South Africa. My point actually follows on the gentleman who's just spoken. And I wanted to say that what Jair was raising, issues of injustice and poverty and lack of delivery of services, are for governments too. And they're decidedly absent in these SBCC forums as how we take them along as strategic partners, because shifting policy is a key component of SBCC. And furthermore, they also control the institutions we need to, in fact, deliver mass programs like our broadcasters, like our radio and TV stations. Unless we have them on board, we don't have delivery at a mass scale. So that is my proposal for next time, that we bring governments on board to try and work with us.
Thank you, Harriet. That's come up a lot in the discussions in town hall in today's workshop on the 2024 summit. The gentleman over there and then you, lady in blue. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Joseph. I'm from Botswana. I think what I've heard from the comments coming from the panel and the contributors this side, is basically that we need to decolonize or make some changes in terms of how we do SBC such that it becomes impactful. And I think a lot of power really rests with the donors or the funders of the program, because SBCC itself, it is widely driven by donors and funders. So my recommendation basically is, if there is a forum of donors or funders, maybe in the next forum, there should be a declaration on their side to decolonize funding, to allow players on the ground to be able to deliver their work, to be able to work with their communities the best way they know change will happen. So that's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I just, if you allow me 1 second, I have a gentleman who had been waving with his mobile. Please, sir, if you get up, please, and tell us where you're from.
Allô?
Allô?
Oui, merci beaucoup. Je m'appelle Massamba Sall et je viens du Sénégal. Je travaille à la direction de la santé de la mère et de l'enfant. Je voudrais partager un peu l'expérience de mon pays par rapport à l'implication.
Est-ce que vous pouvez vous lever parce qu'on ne te voit pas? Merci.
Par rapport à l'implication des religieux dans ce que nous faisons. Parce que des études ont montré que pour changer le comportement des hommes, surtout pour ce qui est de la planification familiale et la santé des adolescents jeunes, il fallait l'implication des religieux. Et je pense que dans des sommets de cette nature, il faudrait autant que faire se peut impliquer le plus des religieux. Par exemple, pour notre pays, nous avons 95% de musulmans, 5% de chrétiens. Et pour arriver à avoir le changement de comportement chez les hommes, il faudrait passer par les religieux. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle nous avons créé des réseaux de religieux. Et ces religieux nous ont aidés dans un premier temps à élaborer un argumentaire des religieux pour la planification familiale, qui a été d'un très grand apport. Et ils sont en train aujourd'hui dans notre pays d'élaborer un argumentaire des religieux pour la santé des adolescents jeunes. Et je pense que dans des pays comme le Sénégal, comme le Maroc et d'autres pays, il faudrait une implication des religieux pour arriver à un changement de comportement des populations. Merci beaucoup.
The lady in blue, I think we have to go last.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi,
sorry about that.
can you hear me? All right.
Lady
So my
in
name
blue,
is,
where are you from?
okay, my name is Diana. I'm from UPM, UNICEF Sipodia program from Malaysia. Recently we conducted media training in the context of SBCC for media in the context of people with disability. So I'm just going to be very quick with the question so that any of the panel up there can tick this up. So the thing is, I find it's a bit difficult sometimes because I was just reading the feedback that we got from our training, and according to these media practitioners, they are very much interested in SBCC. It's just that the problem is when they go back to the editors find that, okay, probably something about PWD is not sexy, so it's probably it won't sell. So I'm just curious to know, from the media perspective or the media practitioner perspective, how do you tackle this? Because we don't want the case that, because they are really interested about how this can be applied in our work, because we just don't want SBCC to become something as a fashionable term full of embellishment. So we want that to put that into practice. Thank you.
Thank you. From Malaysia again. Anna.
Okay. Thank you all. We'd love to really hear from more of you, but there are just too many people, and we certainly want to go back to our panel. So the last question to you four is, from listening to today's conversations from the rest of the audience and your colleagues, your co-panel colleagues, how do you propose we create a future for regional conversations? And how do we create discipline and collaboration between regions? There are many, you put it very nicely earlier, which was, there are many similarities, there's diversity, there's challenges, but there are opportunities. So I'll start with you, Sara. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And thanks also for the flexibility of being able to hear more from all of you. What I take from listening to the conversations leading up to the summit, but now just what happened, I think it's very clear that as we talk about social and behavior change communication, that those that we ought to be talking to and with are clearly the communities that we work with, but people have very importantly pointed out the media, our religious leaders, governments, and also in the global context, holding to account other regions or other countries which have an impact on our own experiences that are outside of our control, the example Sue gave of climate change. So some thoughts, not answers, but some thoughts on how we might do this in our region is that we already do have a number of associations and groups. These kind of issues, the systems levels issues, we cannot solve as one organization, a passionate individual, one media house. These are things that we need to organize around and organize around much more proactively. We need to do it in a way that we can translate as an academic researcher, academic language into something that a media house can understand and be interested in. We need to find ways that sort of Western frameworks are rethought, and we listen to other local ways of knowing, and to teach those things as we're building competencies for people who work in our field, but that those also, they speak to each other. So there's a lot of language that we need to do, not just in Africa, language of the colonizers, not just English, French, and Portuguese, but a different kind of language that we need to be talking about. And one clear suggestion we've been talking about in the hallways is that those of us in Africa who are part of different networks and regions, or who would like to be, we need to take each other's names and numbers and do a mapping of where we are, who we are, and where we stand. Some of us come from different places of strength, and then start having conversations about how we're more strategic about amplifying our needs, our perspectives. Some are very localized, but others that can cross-fertilize. And then with those networks, alliances, whatever that takes shape to be, then we also need to be talking to Jair, we need to be talking to Neha, Dorina, and those who they're representing. None of us individually, but our communities, so that we can not rely on others to filter through and interpret each other's experiences for us, but that we have more direct lines of communication. And I totally agree with people who are saying, you know, we need to have donors. Harriet, we have had some government people here, which has been fantastic, but agree, we need to include different kinds of people in positions of power, also those in positions of not having power, and find ways to facilitate that more strategically.
Perfect. Thank you, Sara. Dorina, your views.
Yeah, quite a number of interesting ideas in the room. Thank you very much. So first of all, I think that cultural and social norms is something we should look into deeply. And we heard about that around the room today. And using social norms approaches, using social and behavior change interventions based on science, based on data, how we can work on those. That's probably one important point. And another one, how do we know what works? And the use of evidence, because doing small researches here and there and trying to measure only the surface of the things doesn't help. I think we need to go professional, or more professional than we are till now and see how we can improve this part of our work. Because we want the politicians to talk to us. We want money from the donors. So we really have to demonstrate the added value of what we do. Either you call it SBCC or SBC overall as an umbrella, doesn't matter. It matters that we want to achieve a social transformation in the societies. And in the societies, we need to show how we will achieve that, right? Just by asking someone to trust us is not enough. We need to show evidence. I like very much what Malaysia was saying, and I think it links very much to the question on how we work in high-income countries, although Malaysia is not a high-income country, but the online community engagement is not only about communities in rural areas where nobody can reach. Community engagement is about communities everywhere. Online communities are communities. And the way you frame it and how we can organically link to those communities, that's a question we, as professionals, we don't have an answer yet. We're trying through different ways, but that's not yet there. And probably the last, I'm not sure I have much more time, but an important part will be also linked to bringing to opening the space. As I said, we shouldn't boil in our own water. We should try to be very inclusive. There are great minds in tech companies. There are great minds in many other areas of work. There are political science, economists, and so on, because we want to go scientific. So how do we do that? We cannot be one person fits all on this earth. We are not. I know that everyone, in principle, the theory is everyone knows how to do communication, and sometimes every communicator thinks they know everything about everyone and everything, but that's not the right way to convince the donors, the governments, and so on to support us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorina. Jair, your point of view, please.
Bueno, muchas gracias por todos los comentarios y aportes que han hecho para la conversación. Yo tocaría 3 puntos. El primero es seguir aprendiendo. Necesitamos fortalecer los procesos de gestión del conocimiento, de aprender, de sistematizar nuestras prácticas, de colonizar el aprendizaje. O sea, si no tenemos una RCT o si no tenemos un estudio sofisticado, tenemos formas de generar conocimiento que nos permita reconocernos, que nos permita compartir y que nos permita también hacia afuera ser reconocidos en ese orden. Entonces yo creo que hay un reto muy importante allí. Segundo, compartir y conversar más entre pares. Yo creo que ayer decía Omar, hay muchas personas que están haciendo cosas y todos queremos ser escuchados. Entonces, buscar más espacios para conversar, para compartir, potencializar y articular las dinámicas regionales. En nuestras regiones se está conversando, pero muchas veces son conversaciones que no se articulan. Los académicos entre académicos, la comunicación popular allá. Entonces, permear las conversaciones y establecer diálogos sur-sur. Sur-sur entre organizaciones populares, organizaciones de comunicación. O sea, si nos quieren llamar sur global, ayúdenos a conversar entre nosotros para poder saber qué somos, qué hay común y qué hay diferente. Y la tercera es cambiar de enfoque. Yo creo que es muy importante cambiar los enfoques. ¿En qué sentido? Cambiar enfoques, por ejemplo, en las narrativas. Por ejemplo, lo que decía un compañero, en lugar de ver las cosas como un delito, el narcotráfico y todo, miremoslo como otras formas distintas para poder abordarlas. En segundo lugar, cambiar enfoque también. Nosotros necesitamos, por ejemplo, desde la academia pensar en generar ofertas para que la gente que quiere estudiar en SBC y estas cosas las estudie en nuestra región, que no se vaya al norte, de colonizar también esta manera de hacer conocimiento. Cambiar las narrativas del cambio, por ejemplo. Nosotros siempre hemos pensado que esas narrativas que construimos sobre el cambio que nos han llegado a la región muchas veces desde fuera y que nos hacen ver, por ejemplo, como pauperizados, como exóticos, y entonces es salir de esa, es una narrativa de potenciar otras cosas. Y finalmente yo quisiera decir que necesitamos cambiar esa narrativa del SBC. Ahorita hemos hablado mucho, por ejemplo, de normas sociales. Y una cosa es cuando se ve la norma de manera individual y otra cosa es cuando se ve la norma, por ejemplo, de manera cultural. El compañero que hablaba me hacía pensar mucho en eso. O sea, a veces nosotros queremos llegar y cambiar la mente de los individuos, pero resulta que cuando vemos la norma desde la perspectiva cultural es otra cosa distinta a pensar en los cambios. Entonces yo creo que si nosotros cambiamos esos enfoques, cambiamos esas miradas, decolonizamos esa relación, y yo creo que hay un punto importante acá y es que en América Latina nosotros tuvimos una generación que fue como la generación crítica, yo siempre digo, fue la generación del desencanto, que intentó utilizar estas aproximaciones funcionalistas, positivistas del cambio y no le funcionó. O sea, nosotros ya experimentamos con eso y no funcionó. Entonces, ahora esta generación nuestra tiene que ir más allá de la generación desencantada y asumir un liderazgo distinto para sentarse en estas mesas y sentarse en los escenarios. Hay una palabra que se ha puesto de moda en unos círculos de América Latina que están trabajando con mucha fuerza y es hackear el poder. O sea, meternos en los diferentes escenarios para hackearlos, para transformarlos y para seguir avanzando en la transformación de esas relaciones de poder que están detrás de muchos de estos males que nos aquejan a nosotros y que nos hacen pensar que somos los culpables.
Thank you so much, Jair. We literally have 1 minute left, Neha, I'm sorry, but I will give up my closing with the exception is that we want to continue the conversation and feedback to the summit organizers on how you would like to feedback this conversation to, or how you would like to continue. But over to Neha, and then we will wrap up today. Thank you.
Sorry, Anna, I'm not sure what you want me to respond to your last point.
The last point is really listening to all the conversations here
Right.
today. How do you see the future?
Yeah, got it. And thanks, I actually have it here with me as reference.
Thank you.
No, I think just to carry forward some of the regional conversations, there were a lot of questions from Morocco, from Iraq, and a couple of others. I mean, I think there are going to be both structured and unstructured ways to maybe organize ourselves, because I think in MENA, we do need to do that and better. With COVID actually gave us an opportunity to get together as a bunch of different agencies and organize around the goals of COVID-19 RCC response, and some of you have been part of it. But I think unstructured, I mean, there are ways for us to get together. For all the colleagues here who are working in countries, I would suggest you tap into your local, organizations, academia or practitioner-led organizations that will allow you an entry point into conversations. I see a lot of, great questions around, data and things, the kind of things that Dorina mentioned. So I think that's where we can have the conversations. Structured opportunities, I think, would require a little more thinking, would require investment, would require resources, and perhaps can be organized around thematic goals of improving data or improving outcomes for communities. Sometimes it doesn't have to be outcomes, it could just be about voice. And certainly through professional and even non-professional training programs and learning opportunities. So just very quickly, I'm thinking these might be the different ways in which we could move forward for us in MENA, and maybe get to answer some of the questions and ideas that colleagues talked about.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much. I'm sure you enjoyed today as much as I did, and thank you to our 4 panelists. So let's give them a round of applause. And let's find a way to keep the conversation going. Thank you.
Anna.